to this. I know there are about 60 other meetings that are happening at the same time. So there will be a recording of this so that you can take a look at it later and other people can look at it who are not here today. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Kisha Tracy, the General Education Program Area Chair. My co-facilitator today is Megan Krell, who is the faculty lead in advising. Megan, for now, is going to be running the chat on Google Meet. And if you have questions, please pop them in there. If you want to say them out loud, please just let Megan know, and we'll stop and allow that too. And then we'll be switching later when Megan's gonna take over. So today, what we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about some of the nuts and bolts of the general education program that will help you with your advising moving forward. If you are advising first-year students this year, you are definitely going to need this information in a couple of weeks. If you don't have first-year students this year, then it will be useful information for you in the future. I want to take a look at the bigger picture first, and quite literally look at the bigger picture, because we've tried to put into a graphic what our general education program is all about. Both the requirements, the check boxes, and the why. Why are students taking the courses that we're asking them to take? And this is the graphic that we came up with. Some of you have seen it. I debuted it at the development day, and if you've seen any of my emails from the general education program, it's in the signature. But it is a very helpful, and I've had a lot of students who've looked at it say that it's been helpful to take a look at it from this perspective. And it might be useful to show your students this particular graphic. It is on the general education program website. I have, for those of you who are in person, I do have brochures of the program with me if you do not have not had those before. But you'll see on the inside are the three parts: the foundation, exploration, integration. The lighter gold is, or the dark gold is the types of the courses that students will be taking, and then the lighter gold are the detailed courses that they'll be taking or might take in those particular categories. And the outer green is the why, what we hope that they learn out of these courses. So hopefully this gives you a graphic, a visual to be able to share with your advisees and any other students that you might want to talk about general education with. The other thing that is on this slide on the left-hand side, this is our promise to students. This is the academic mission to a certain extent. What we promise students will be when they get out of Fitchburg State, if they've worked hard and done their job while they're here. I like to highlight this because it really does a very good, succinct job of summarizing what we want students to learn. Creative and critical thinkers, that's that exploration part. Who integrate, that's the integration part. And communicate, which is a lot about the foundation area part. Learning from a variety of disciplines, and that's also exploration. And experiences, which is also integration. In ways, and I told students yesterday when I did this, that I find this to be the most important part of the whole thing. Enhance civic, personal, and professional lives. One of the things that we really need to get better at is not separating the fact out of whether we're teaching them to train for jobs or whether we're teaching them to be better people. It's about all of the above. It's about the whole student and about every part of their lives moving forward. You'll notice the circle at the bottom, you, the student, the person, the professional. It was a very deliberate move on our part to put that there because we want want everyone, not just students, but everyone on campus to understand how general education fits into all the parts of a student's life, both here on campus while they're here with us, and then in lifelong learning and in their professions in the future. There are several advising resources available for you. I'm going to go through one with you here in a second, which is the interactive advising tool. But certainly the tool itself is linked on the general education program website. If you just put in general education program into the search bar on our website, you can get to that link. Also, never hesitate to contact us about this. You can either contact the email address for general ed, or you can contact me directly, and I'll be happy to respond to questions. What I want to do, however, is take you to the interactive advising tool. We're particularly proud of this, so hopefully it will be useful for you. So this tool has all of the requirements for the general education program, as well as hotspots on here that will take you to links that will help with more information. You'll see more links that are associated with certain ones of these. Questions, where to go if you have questions about specific parts of the program. And I'll talk about those a little bit more as we go through this. For those of you who have been in sessions with me before and heard this many times, my apologies, but I'm going to go through it again for everybody, just because there are people who haven't heard it before, and because it never hurts to hear it again when you want to know the requirements. Yes, Will. So if you go on our university website and put in general education program and go to that page, there's a section for faculty and staff, and it is linked right there. You're welcome. So, just as I talked about with the graphic, there are 3 parts to the program. The first part to the program, we have given you very simplified names so that we can talk about this more easily. The foundation, the long title is Foundations for Lifelong Learning. This is 15 credits, 5 courses. Your advisees coming in to you in a couple of weeks should already be in the FYE. I can do that. Elizabeth, I just saw the message. Okay. They should already be taking the FYE course. They should already be in writing 1, or if they have tested writing 2, but more than likely writing 1. They may also be in their quantitative reasoning course. They may also be in their world languages speaking and listening course. If not, they should be taking those in the next semester along with writing 2. Now, what I want to emphasize here, and what we should emphasize with our students, is why they're taking these courses, and we'll talk a lot more about that later, but I want to emphasize here, each one of these is associated with at least one learning outcome. The major thing from a general education perspective that we want them to get out of that course. The FYE course, they have a lot of things that they focus on, but for our purposes, reading and information literacy are very important. I was very excited yesterday. I gave the students that were in the workshop the 2 icons for reading and information literacy without telling them what they were. And they were able to identify what they were learning in their FYE through those icons. So I think it's getting through to them what's actually happening. The Writing 1 course, guess what? We want them to learn writing from the Writing 1 course. Writing 2 is both writing and extending the information literacy that they are learning in FYE. So they really have a 2-course sequence of information literacy in their first year. Quantitative reasoning is quantitative reasoning. That should make sense there. And that they may be in different types of courses depending on their majors, depending on their background with math, all of that sort of thing. Again, there is a question mark there because you can contact directly the chair of the math department if you have a question about what math course your student should be in. World languages speaking and listening is a very new part of this program in the sense of, 1, it's no longer a soft requirement. It used to be a soft requirement in the majors. Now it is a hard requirement that students must take in their general education, but they have a choice. They can either take a world language or they can take a speech type course. Okay. Some department majors have already made this decision for their students, and we're going to be talking and see if maybe we can soften those up a little bit. But for now, make sure you know what your majors are requiring. But the more choice we can give them to take a world language is really what we're emphasizing here. Okay. Any questions about the foundation area? We're good on that? Okay. The second part of the curriculum is the exploration area, or if you really like saying words, the critical and creative thinking across the disciplines area. The exploration area is 27 credits. It's 9 requirements that students are expected to take. This is civic learning, diverse perspectives, ethical reasoning, fine arts expression and analysis, historical inquiry and analysis, literary inquiry and analysis, personal wellness, procedural and logical thinking, scientific inquiry and analysis. Each one of these courses has also identified 1 or 2 skills that they are going to develop in the course. This is not a hard requirement. You are not going to see this in degree works. You're not going to see it in anything that says they must take all of the skills here. They're just getting the skills that they get across the courses, the 9 courses that they are taking. The skills that are being developed here are the same ones that were developed, that were started in the foundation area. So reading, information literacy, quantitative reasoning, writing, and world languages speaking and listening, but also critical thinking, creative thinking, and digital literacy. Okay? Absolutely. What is it?
If a student is already proficient in several languages, is the world language still a requirement?
We are doing the same thing that we have always done, where if a student is testing out of things and they get credit for that, then they will get credit for the general education. So the same rules apply that applied before. Yep. And also, just so you are aware, several of the, actually all of the intermediate level language courses have also been put in for diverse perspectives. So if they want to take the next sequence of courses, they will then also get gen ed credit for that, or could get gen ed credit for that as well. Okay, that's the exploration area. Any questions about the exploration section? Yes, Will.
On the side, it says from the exploration and integration portion of the curriculum, students may complete up to 3 general.
Don't jump ahead, Will. I'll get there. I'll explain that in a second.
Can you go to step 2 before they finish step 1?
Yes. Yes. Just as long as they have the prereq or whatever they need for those courses, it's the same as it has always been. We are trying to encourage students to take them in a nice order, but obviously that's not always going to be possible or happen. Yes.
They're asking to repeat the audience questions.
Yes. So the one question we had. No, you're not tapping fast enough. I was leaving it to you, Megan. The first question was about the left-hand side, which of the tool, which I'll get to in just a second. So I'm not going to go through that. The next question was, can students take exploration courses before they finish foundation courses? And the answer is yes. There is no requirement to meet your foundation first.
There's another question. Is there a way to customize this by major since some requirements are met by the major?
The tool? I can certainly help make that happen if departments want it. I can help you develop this. It's very easy to develop as long as I have the information that we need. Okay. I actually am also in development to make one of these for students. I haven't yet because there was some debate about the formatting and the website, but I'm planning on making an interactive tool for students as well, or more for students. The third section of the curriculum is the integration section. In this one, they need to take a minimum of 9 credits, usually 3 courses, that meet the integration requirements. Now, when you go through AUC, there are a bunch of ways to meet the integration requirement. I am not going to go through those for now because All you need to know for advising are the courses that have been approved for the AIA, the integration designation. So there's an integrative learning requirement. Some of these courses are directly integrative learning. Some of these are upper level courses with prerequisites in the gen ed program. Either way, if it's an AIA designation, it's an AIA designation. It doesn't really matter for the moment how we got there. So they need to take at least two, or I shouldn't say that. They will take courses in this, and I'll explain the other in just a second. They have to take at least one course that is an integrative high impact practice, IHIP course. The IHIP courses, these are not just Fitchburg State defined. This is a national definition of what a high impact practice is. This has been through teaching and learning research to figure out what are high impact practices. But these include study abroad. They include internships, creative student faculty creative projects, student faculty research projects, team taught courses, community engagement courses. Those are the main ones. And then there's writing intensive is the one that I'm missing. Writing intensive courses. Don't tell my chair, I just forgot that. So one of those three courses has to be that. Actually, all three of those courses could be IHIPs if they want to take them, but one minimum has to be an IHIP. So an IHIP is automatically an AIA, but one of them needs to have the IHIP designation. I saw Nellie's pop up there. So this is the integration section. What's really cool is that students can replace this section with a minor. They can fulfill this entire section by taking a minor along with their major. And what makes this even more possible is that anything over the 9 credits that the minor takes up in the integration section that also has a foundation or exploration designation can also count towards that foundation or exploration category. So there are some minors, and I'm going to provide some resources on this of how to map a minor to the general education curriculum, but there are some minors that wouldn't be any extra credits because they all have designations within the general education program. Will?
So, quick question. For example, my area is program area of study, middle school, secondary. So let's say a history person, they major in history and they automatically minor in education.
Yep.
So the moment that they minor in education, that integration
Yes.
is done.
Yes.
And the leftover credits, if they fulfill either foundation or exploration, they go in there. Right?
Don't tend to have any in the education minor, but yes, if they did, they did. Okay. And that's already on the 4-year plans of study for those programs.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So the question was about if, especially the second, what is it now? The middle and secondary ed, which are in history and English and et cetera, they take a minor in education, and that automatically qualifies for their integration section. If there are courses that meet the rest of them, it could. I don't think there are, but I'll double check and see if there are. But it does automatically count for that, and that's already in the 4-year plans. Same deal, because they take a minor. Okay. Any question about in the integration section? Yes, thank you for reminding me. Professional majors have to take an LAS minor, a liberal arts and sciences minor. So the liberal arts and sciences, it has to have at least 9 credits of liberal arts and sciences in the minor for it to count. Mark, who's here, and I have already kind of been through that. There's only actually a few that don't qualify, and I can provide that list for anybody that needs them. What was the question, Megan? I saw there was a question.
It was me summarizing the question.
Oh, perfect. Excellent. Thank you, Megan. So yes, but LAS majors can take any minor that they want. All right, now I will answer Will's question about the left-hand side. So you may have heard of this little thing that we call MAJ. And a lot of your programs have already put in MAJ requests through MAJ requests through AUC. So these are already decided for a lot of you. These are already in the four-year plans. There are general education four-year plans on the website. Those, if an MAJ has been put through, it is on those plans, I hope. If it's not, let me know. And what MAJ means is that a major, a program, a department can decide that they have a really big major and they can't fit everything in, maybe. And so they can do up to 3 requirements in the general education program. They can double dip with the major in the exploration and integration sections. Okay?
We have 2 questions.
Okay.
One was kind of answered in the chat. Just to clarify, all IHIPs are AIAs, but not all AIAs are IHIPs.
Correct.
And then the second question is, will they now be called Gen Ed majors?
So this is a really tricky question right now. We haven't quite figured all of that out. What we're going with right now is the, if you'll remember on the Liberal Arts and Sciences program option C form, there was a list of what was considered liberal arts and sciences designations. We are staying with that for the time being. That may shift in the future, but for now, we are sticking with that, and we're sticking with it to designate between professional programs and LAS designations. Does that make sense? Okay, good. All right. So that may shift in the future, but it won't for now. That's what we're sticking with for the moment. Any questions about the MAJ? I just want to give you a brief idea of the advice that I've been giving to students and gave to them yesterday of kind of a 3-step plan before they walk into you. I don't know how many students will get hold of this, but I have sent it out, the slides out to the FYE instructors. Hopefully maybe it'll get out. I am asking them to think about these questions, because the sooner you think about these things, the sooner the student can make decisions. The longer they wait, as you all know, they just have to take the courses that they can get sometimes. So if they plan early, they can do a deliberate plan of study. They could do a minor. They could do all of those the choices that they can make. So this is the advice that I've given them. These are the resources that I gave them yesterday. So just so you can take a look at it, you're welcome to take a screenshot of that if you're online. I know Will already took a photo, so if anybody else wants one, you're welcome to do that. I had students do that yesterday, photo and screenshot, so they could remember these resources. Perfect. Perfect. That's what I'm hoping. At least more students will get. Exactly. Yeah. And that'll shift, but at least it's a plan. Right? Yeah. Yeah. Yep. I'm not going to go through this because you know how to read a 4-year plan. I left this in from my slides from yesterday. But I do think it's important to remind you that our students don't know how to read a 4-year plan. I went through this with students yesterday. They really needed to go through the whole thing and how it is set up, and they don't really know what a 4-year plan is. So just a reminder not to assume that your advisees know what this means, okay? This is where I'm going to turn it over to Mark.
Hey everybody, this is Mark LeBlanc, Associate Registrar and Degree Works guy here at Fitchburg State. So I am going to actually refresh my student here. And we've got a fake student for us today, admissions fake student. Hopefully this updates.
Yes. Yes. I sent it out to all the FYE instructors. Okay. If anybody else wants it, I'm happy to. Actually, I think I'm going to send it out next week.
Hey, Kisha.
I'll send it out to everybody.
Could you update this for me? Refresh the worksheet. It doesn't want to refresh.
Can you just refresh the page?
Oh, maybe. Oh, I guess not. That's all right. Sorry, not used to your laptop. I'm a mouse guy. It's that Mercury retrograde again.
Everything's from Mercury retrograde.
All right, find my student. Sorry, everybody. There we go. All right, so what we have here is the easiest degree evaluation you will ever see. Compared to the last LAS program, this is a breeze to look at. And if you remember CAP before it, it's 2 times as easy. So, and I'm going to seem like a noob here, but I'm not sure how to scroll up and down. Would you like to show me how to scroll up and down, Kisha? Oh, okay, 2 fingers.
2 fingers.
Got it. All right, so the top area, everything stays the same. You just have the general menu of items that you'll find below. The ignore this block is the placement testing for math, where we went from a simple 1 test system for everybody to you're a STEM, you're not a STEM, take this course. It got a little too complicated for even the consultants for degree work. So for right now, it's on hold, but we didn't want to get rid of it in case we're ever able to actually program it. So for now, ignore this block is exactly what you can do. Next, Foundation for Lifelong Learning. Pretty simple. We just have a whole host of attributes. Most of these first courses, the first year experience in Writing 1, your freshman students would have been pre-registered into if they hadn't already taken them as dual enrollment or transferred them in from another school. So likely you will see them already registered in those courses. Again, like normal, if you click on the attribute, it'll show you what courses will satisfy that attribute. So in this case, it's just the 1 course. All right, so moving down, you just simply have them take any course that has the attributes. There's really not much rocket science involved here. Same with the exploration area. This student's registered for History 1400. So what we did, instead of just having the attribute show here as requirements, I actually made them part of the title of the requirement, because once the student registers for this, you can't see that it was the CV attribute anymore. That disappears. So I put it over here in the title. And the reason why we did that is some courses will have multiple attributes. I'm making this up completely, but a student could have a CV attribute and a DP attribute. Well, what if the student wanted it to count as the DP attribute course, but they can't remember that it had it there, things like that. So that's why we wanted to put these in the title. Now, if there is a case where your student took a course and it has multiple attributes, but they wanted it, say, this requirement to count down here in DP, all they'd need to do is take another CV course, and the course would fall from here down to the DP requirement, likely. What we don't want to do is have students asking us to be moving courses around, things like that. All they need to do is register for the other course again, and it'll automatically move the course, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? Yeah, okay, good. Now, talking about the MAJ, for each of the majors that had MAJ courses approved, what we did was went into that area and made that requirement met. So in this case, the procedural and logical thinking requirement is met by the economics major. So the student knows right off the bat, they don't have to worry about that requirement due to the MAJ being met. So couldn't be simpler. Some majors have up to 3 courses that have been approved for MAJ. So I think they're only in the exploration and integration areas. Is that correct? Right. So none of the foundation courses. Let's see. Moving down, again, integration. It's a simple 3 credits of an attribute or 6 credits. Many majors did have some of the these integration areas met by MAJ requirements. Another popular one was the diverse perspectives. That one seems to have had a lot of MAJ as well. So as you're advising, just be sure to check and make sure that the attribute you're advising is actually needed by your major. And then everything else actually stays the same. Used to be called major LAS requirements. Now it's the major gen ed requirements. Thank you very much for that update. Love it. That's terrific. And everything else also stays the same. The one thing I would want to note for the integration area, we are still working on the minor or major second major to meet the area. That's still underway. Fortunately, we have our freshman class coming in, so we have a little bit of time before they're going to have many second majors and minors as such. So we will have that done shortly. It was a bit of a whirlwind summer in our office, but we will have that done for sure, especially probably by the end of the fall semester, I would estimate. I don't think there's anything else I really have to go over. Oh, should I talk about the seats list at all?
If you want to, I don't know where you're.
Sure. So one thing, as you're advising, you may notice as you are looking at the seats list, if you're searching for an attribute such as LI for a literary inquiry, you might notice every online course that we offer comes up because LI is a 2-character sequence in the word online. So what we're trying to do is figure out a way to make searching a little bit easier so that you are able to search, only find exactly what you're looking for. We had a couple of possible ideas. One of them just got shot down right before this meeting, so a little disappointed, but we're hoping to get something for you advisors out there to make the new attribute search a little bit easier. All right. Well, that being said, any questions on what we've done here in DegreeWorks?
So for students that not freshmen,
Mhm.
it's still going to look
Exactly the same as it did last semester.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
We just had a question about can we put a drop down of attributes, and I said that was plan A, and it wasn't possible to do that.
Right. The seats list software effectively has a search, and it's the whole page search, and that's it. We tried with IT many times, and that was a solid no.
Worth a try.
It was worth a try. And that was plan A. Believe me, I wanted an attribute search. That would have made life so much easier.
Yep.
This is eliminating that they have to choose an option.
Yes, exactly. No more advanced LAS option, which is a boon for my office. We had to manually input all that data.
So right now, if you search, LI, comma, make sure you have the comma. It will come up only with the attribute.
Oh, that's nice. Well, that works if it has multiple attributes,
If it
I
has
think.
multiple attributes,
That's correct.
then it will work.
Right. Good point.
Yeah.
Thank you for pointing that out. What we were looking to do, so Jeff, that's an excellent idea. So the idea that just got temporarily shot down was LI asterisks. But it turns out that special characters are considered sometimes command characters in software programs, and the reporting we have to do for the federal government involves such software. So institutional research is leery of having us put special characters after the letters. I was asked if we could just change the letters of the attributes, which I gave a solid no to. So,
Jeff has a really good idea.
which is?
E-E-L-I.
Yeah, well, actually, we have 4 characters, so anything that was already like IHIP would be a problem. But yes, we could do extra letters. Yeah, maybe we could put a Z in front of them all, right?
Yeah.
Right, and that might work. Sure. Like I said, that just came up right before this meeting, but that's an excellent thought.
We can get it so that we can put that on the list of possibilities.
Yes, yeah, plan C. Yes.
Yeah, plan C. That's Any other questions for Mark? That was
All
a
right,
lot
thanks,
less
guys.
questions than usual, Mark.
I will take over. Hi, everyone.
To the left hand and present.
Alrighty, fantastic. So what I'm going to do today is talk a little bit more about the why of general education and how to talk to your students about the why of general education. So I have for you here the general benefits of general education broken down by our three categories here. So our foundation, our exploration, and our integration. And I think that this part is important for you all to understand and get comfortable with, because the more that you can talk about why general education is so important, the more excited your students will be about exploring and putting together all of the work that they're doing throughout the general education program. So in looking at our foundation courses, this is where we're really building skills for college success. We're increasing awareness for campus resources and having a cohesive first year experience for all of our students. Then we get into exploration. So we're building on those foundational skills. We're exploring different viewpoints and having a variety of different ways to be able to think about our world. And then lastly, here we have integration. And so this is where students get to think about more advanced problems. And there's a lot of student choice here. They potentially have the option to do a minor if, or they have the option to do a minor if they choose. And here's where we have our high impact practice. So I think that understanding these benefits is important, and also understanding and communicating to students how these build upon each other. So how do you actually talk to your students about general education? What I would love for everyone to do in advising is to ask the question, or in human services, we would call this an imperative. So tell me what you know about our general education program. So get a sense of what do students know already. Some students might know a lot. Some students participated in a workshop yesterday and are going to be pretty familiar with general education program and the requirements, maybe even more familiar than faculty. FYE students are reviewing this in many of the FYE classes. So as an advisor, I'd love for you to talk about this with students in this way. And then that helps you assess, well, what are the gaps in students' knowledge? What misconceptions do they have? And as students go through and are taking general education classes, I'd love for you to be able to point out connections and help encourage students to make their own connections. So I have an example for you here. We have two courses that we offer here on campus. So Introduction to Environmental Science and Poverty. So both have several different designations here. For those of you online or here, could you think of what ways might those two seemingly unrelated courses relate to each other?
Society.
Society. Sure.
I'm thinking that environmental science and some of the issues with climate change has actually led to poverty in certain circumstances.
Sure, absolutely. So Kisha said that some aspects of environmental science, like climate change, may have contributed to poverty in some circumstances. Certainly. And so thinking about what are some of the ways that these, oh, great.
Environmental racism and impact on poor communities.
Yes.
Both could show poor outcomes for and disproportionate impact on those with low SES.
Yes, perfect. So Kisha was reading off the from the chat. Perfect. Absolutely. Absolutely. There's lots of connections that we can make here. And so for advisors to be able to make some of these connections and encourage students to do this as well. I have for you here several other questions that you might consider asking your advisees. So for example, what other majors did you consider when you were applying to college? This might help when we get to all of the different choices that students have within our general education program. This might give you some ideas of, hey, you were interested in this in the past. Why don't you try a course like this? Same with, what were your favorite classes in high school? What about them did you enjoy? So encouraging students to think back and perhaps take a class that was similar to something that they enjoyed in the past. And then lastly, students take the college student inventory, and it is an assessment that rates on several different things. And one of those is high confidence and low confidence on several different areas like math and reading. And so that's another thing that you can look at together with students and help advise based on that. This is something that all the FIE instructors will do this with their students as well. So all of these tools, and if you're interested in where you can find students, there's like a printout of a summary of their college student inventory. You can find it in SSC. And then, so the why do I have to take that class? It's not my major question. So I would recommend that you all be prepared for this question. Be ready to answer this question. Students will ask it. In fact, they are encouraged to ask it. They are encouraged to figure out what this means to them and to be able to continue getting information about why it's so important. So when this question comes to you, my suggestions, validate, reframe, and provide options. So validate to me means, wow, I'm so excited that you are so enthusiastic about your major. Reframe. There are lots of other courses that will actually help you with your major classes. They'll help give you other perspectives. They'll help give you other ways to think about what we talk about in our major. And then lastly, provide options. And so that's where you would use some of the questions that we talked about here. So what other majors did you consider? What were your favorite classes? To be able to help them choose options that are really meaningful to them and their lives. Again, share the benefits, talk about the benefits of general education to your advisees. You might also consider talking about how college level classes differ from high school classes. And so it's possible that students have a perception in their head of what a specific class is all about. And the reality is that how we approach that class here is completely different and perhaps something that they would be really excited about. And my last two suggestions are make it real. So share a personal example from your own experience about what was a general education class that you took that was meaningful to you in your personal life? How did it impact you personally? And similarly, how did it impact you professionally? And we will have a chance to practice and think about this in a few minutes. So before I turn it back over to Kisha, other questions about how to approach this with your advisees and different questions to be able to ask them? Hearing none? Okay. All right, thank you, everyone.
Just so you are aware, I told the students yesterday that any advisor that doesn't like the question, why do I have to take this course, should come see me. So just so you're aware. I want to do a little bit of an exercise here that I've done with many different student groups to this point. And we're not going to spend a ton of time on this because I know we're, definitely giving you a lot, and we're getting, there's time is marching on, but I do want to take you through this because it's proven to be a really excellent exercise with students and gets them really going. We've had some really great discussions with students about this. And so this exercise is, how does general education help us with the last couple of years? Okay, as I told my students yesterday, in case you are unaware, things have happened in the last couple of years. If you've forgotten what those are, COVID and a worldwide pandemic, as we sit here with masks on, Black Lives Matter, climate crises, an election, economic instability, and ... as these continue on, right? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a series of icons. I'm not going to make you guess which of the icons are which. I'll give you what they actually are. And I just want to have a brief discussion on 4 slides about how those particular learning outcomes, what we want students to get out of the general education program, helps them and us understand, survive, and learn from the past couple of years. And by learning from, how do we improve the world moving forward? How do we, both personally and in our community? Okay. I'd like you to think about this both from your own perspective and what your advisees might say. So I'm just going to give you, everybody online, you can even unmute and shout them at Megan. I'm telling you to shout at Megan at this point. And here we can, again, we're not going to spend a ton of time on this, but I'm going to give you, so this is the foundation set: writing, world languages, speaking and listening, information literacy, reading, quantitative reasoning. How do these help us understand, survive, and learn from the past couple of years?
Quantitative reasoning helped us understand to some extent how to, deal with a pandemic.
Yes.
Right. Understanding how epidemiologists,
Absolutely. I'm thinking even of
stop
looking
there, but because I think we get it.
The COVID dashboards you need quantitative reasoning to be able to understand them.
Yeah.
What else?
Reading literacy, understanding the information out there, the viewpoints, and
Understanding from different viewpoints, the information literacy, being able to understand the information that's been given to us in the last few years. Yep. Other thoughts?
I think the world's languages was very important, just because as a world we were all suffering together, and so we found community in that. But also, there were labs all over the world working on, vaccines for COVID. So that communication amongst different cultures and languages is very important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, we had I don't even know who was speaking, but we had a nursing faculty member here yesterday who was saying that about the different labs in different places where the research is being produced in different languages, all of that sort of thing.
I think all of these communication on some level,
yep.
Whether it's communicating some information through a visual graph or
yep.
writing or listening to someone speak about their experiences as a Black person in this country, or any of those things that happened in the last. Being able to input and output that information.
The response was that all of these speak to communication, and my math colleagues have convinced me about quantitative reasoning as communication in the last few years when I've been talking about this. But all of these are ways to communicate, and we've been using those ways to communicate for the last however long, right? Especially we were thinking, Sarah was saying Black Lives Matter, all of those sorts of issues about how to communicate different points of view. Excellent. Next set, civic learning. This is X5 in the exploration category. Civic learning, diverse perspectives, ethical reasoning, personal wellness, and procedural and logical thinking. And ignore that little asterisk. I had a thing for the students on that. And I forgot to take out the asterisk. Thoughts on this one?
I think this is more advanced the first, but still all communicating and understanding as a diverse perspective. That communication and reasoning and the communication in the first is now just more precise here in those different areas. See,
All the communication in the first and the foundation is now a more advanced and more precise in terms of the types of communication that, and what we're communicating, actually what we are communicating as a result of it. And the diverse perspectives definitely plays in from the world languages that we were talking about before. I mean, for me here, you know, ethical reasoning, whether to get vaccinated or not. We had a Constitution Day where Dr. David Spalba gave a really excellent kind of summary of kind of the ethical choices that are involved with COVID. Personal wellness, I don't think you get any little bit better, both physically as well as emotionally and mentally over the last couple of years. Procedural and logical thinking, I mean, how to go, you know, to go about some of the things, and civic learning. I mean, I think if anything, civic learning has filtered to the top in the last couple of years. The second set of exploration, fine arts expression analysis, literary, scientific, historical inquiry and analysis. What do you think the last couple of years? COVID and scientific inquiry and analysis, those two go together pretty clearly.
I appreciated personally some of the sort of social media celebrities of sorts that are more intellectual but have a real gift for explaining things that I am not an expert.
Yeah,
I
this.
have an epidemiologist that I follow that is like, I'm not going to talk to you like a stupid person because you're not.
Now we're taking scientific inquiry and analysis and talking about that communication piece at the beginning and being able to communicate to large and different types of audiences, right? Which is very big. It's very important. We can't stay in our silos forever, unfortunately.
How about people using Instagram or other social media as a means of fine arts expression?
Absolutely.
And analysis, right? I mean, people, we do this all the time, and we don't necessarily understand that we are dealing with composition and form and color, and right. So understanding fine arts expression and being able to analyze it might help us to make more sense of these sort of the landscape of our social media, and being able to, you know, how we communicate with each other nowadays.
And being able to analyze images that we see on social media would definitely fall into this category as well.
Yeah.
For me, also, fine arts and literary expression and analysis, there are some experiences that can only be expressed through fine arts and through literary expression, and to be able to see that throughout time, how others have experienced similar things to us and have expressed them through these particular types of media. It's very, you know, this is how we understand other human beings, right, through their creative expressions. And historical inquiry and analysis, I think, has been pretty clear that we need a little bit more of that in everybody's lives. One more set, the integrative learning and integrative high impact practice. These are more abstract. Students always have, by the way, when students don't really, there's a large group of students who don't know what integration means in this context. So just be aware that when you're talking to your advisees, this may be one of those where you need to define it for them. Any thoughts on how this fits into the last couple of years? Well, first one that jumps out to me is community engagement as a high impact practice, engaging with our community, going to protests, things along those lines, affecting change. And we think we've been talking about integrative learning this whole time, where all of these work together, right? You need all of them to work together in order to be able to do certain things. We actually had a really great example yesterday that just the act of deciding to go to a protest in COVID actually involves every single one of these, that every one of these fits into that as to what decisions you have to make to do that.
Supply chain of goods.
Supply chain of goods. Oh, that would be a big one right now. Yeah. And that fits very much into integrative learning. Absolutely. So I just want to do one more exercise just to get you thinking. And Megan alluded to this at the end of her piece. We're going to be, I don't know if you've heard of the Faculty Academy, and a lot of you have. Some of you are in the Faculty Academy that are here, I know. And we use a pedagogy called Real Talk, and we're going to start applying this to general education on a broader basis. Well, we're just going to do a little bit of a taste of it here. What I would like you to do, select one of the learning outcomes that we just went through. Doesn't matter which one it is, or skills. And think of a personal or professional story about the significance of that learning outcome that you could share with your advisee. So I'm going to give you just a couple of minutes. I'm not going to take a long time because I know we're already at 4:30. But I would like to take a few minutes for this. And see, and so if you're in here and want to turn to somebody, you can share that. Or I'm going to ask for a couple of examples here in a second if people would share them. But think about what personal or professional story could you share if a student came to you and said, "Why the hell am I taking this course?" Hopefully they'll say it a little bit better than that. So I'm going to give you a second to think, and then I'm going to ask. Does anyone have an example that they would like to share? Who does? Oh, excellent. Go ahead. You can unmute. Shumi.
Oh, yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I actually have a story about speech communication. I was one of those students as a graduate student in a major university. I was required to take speech communication, and I was outraged because I used to get really high scores in English tests. So I was totally outraged. Why do I have to take speech communication? And somebody explained to me that good scores on English tests is not the same thing as the ability to communicate effectively with others. And I still remember, but I learned a lot from there. Yeah.
I love that, Shumi. That's exactly the kind of thing that we're talking about that will resonate with students. Is this idea, I went through this, right? I went through this. I had the same thoughts you're having right now, and guess what? I was wrong.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. I shouldn't have put it down. Go ahead.
I don't know if she's here. Denise, go ahead.
Denise, you can go ahead.
Hi. Similar to Sumi's, but mine's a little different. When I'm talking to I'm doing one of the FYE courses with freshmen in the business program. And so they had a lot of questions about why they would need to take these classes. And it was very easy coming from business where your customer base, no matter what, everyone's coming from different understandings, different backgrounds. And the more knowledge you have, the better equipped you are with solving problems. Because a lot of what we're doing is a lot of critical thinking and a lot of critical problem solving. And you need to have different ways of viewing ideas and viewing things in order to come up with really unique situations. So all of the civics classes, being able to communicate with the sciences in case you're going into business with those, all of those types of things really count. And so we had a big discussion about all the different disciplines and where it would interact and where it could be necessary. And that it turned into such a lively conversation as people started thinking and the kids, and it was really great.
That is
So,
fantastic.
so I think if we turn it back on them and say, hey, what connections do you think? Once they start doing that, they can figure it out.
Highly recommend active learning, even in your advising sessions or any other sessions with students where you get them to decide. You get them to talk about it. I have actually all my gen ed classes, I have a unit at the beginning that is all about that particular type of them figuring out why it's important to be in that class. And it's made all the difference in the world in my classes as well. So highly recommend that. Somebody else? Aaron?
Yeah, I think this is going off of what Sumi said too, and that is, oh, my camera was off. This was going off what he said earlier, and that is, I think if you can share personal experiences with your students and let them know, like, I really didn't necessarily want to do this too, but I did, and here are some really great things that come out of it, and just sharing those personal experiences. I remember being put into an anthropology class as a freshman. I was a late admit, and that's pretty much where they were able to put me. And I didn't even know, quite frankly, as a 17-year-old, what anthropology even was. And by the end of, college, I almost minored in it. I'm like 3 credits shy of having a minor in anthropology.
Interestingly enough, anthropology is one of those that most people will bring up as the course they didn't know why they were going to take and then used it the most.
I mean, it was so interesting. And I also remember, like, to this day, I can still tell the difference by listening just to a piece of music, whether it's Baroque or classical or romantic or Renaissance, because I had to take a music appreciation class.
Yep.
And I still to this day appreciate music. So I mean, I really do see the benefit of gen eds, and I think it's really important as faculty to share those personal stories with your students and kind of be a little bit vulnerable and open up. And maybe if they see, well, if she liked it, maybe I'll like it too.
And I think and I completely agree with you. And I also want to encourage you. It's okay to say, I hated this when I was 17. It's okay. When I was your age, I hated this. Like, I hated what I was doing, but this is what I learned later.
I have too many friends in the history department to say what classes I enjoyed the least, but that doesn't mean I still don't love my colleagues in the history department.
Absolutely. Again, just don't be afraid to be honest with your students about your history with teaching, with learning. Don't be afraid to be honest about it. Anyone else? Anybody else from the chat? No?
No.
Okay. Those are fabulous examples. Fabulous examples right there. And again, we say both personal and professional, but I will tell you that personal tends to work even a little bit more than professional. Not because it's not powerful, but the personal makes that connection. And I think that if you can make that personal connection, it really is important. To give a little bit of a plug, February 15th at 3:30 p.m., the Teaching and Learning Hour, we are taking over, the Gen Ed's taking over, and we're going to be actually workshopping real talks where we take those ideas like you just developed and develop them into formal real talks. We're also thinking about videoing some of our faculty doing real talks about various parts of the Gen Ed curriculum so that you would have those to show students if you like. Process, and it takes time, but hopefully we'll be able to get those to you in the coming year. And just a reminder, the advising period is October 18th through November 5th. And Jeff is having a moment, I'm sure, if he's still there. They have way too many advisees over there in comm media. But just a reminder, and if you need anything Gen Ed wise, do not hesitate to ask. I develop resources all the time. So if your department needs a resource like Paul was asking about before, I'm happy to help develop whatever needs to be developed. I just need to know what it is so that I can help develop it in any way. Questions, thoughts?
I think one thing that's important is to remind, especially the first year students, right, that they're coming in, that this is just as new for us that it is for them. And what I do in my FYE class is let's learn together. I may have a little bit more because of this and colleagues and all that, but this is my first year doing this.
So the suggestion was that we be honest with our students that this is new for us as well. Remind them that we're learning as well as, you know, the same time that they are. I told the students yesterday that actually came to the workshop that they would probably be more, in some ways, they may be more informed than their advisors if they go in and talk to them. So we're all in this together. There's different ways. Do be aware that, you know, I've trained the peer mentors, I've trained the orientation leaders, I've trained a lot of different groups of students, the trio SSS squad. I've trained a lot of different groups on this. So hopefully students are hearing it from different sides. I've trained a lot of different programs on campus. I'm happy to come into your department and train department if you like on specific things. You just let me know what you need and I'll be happy to provide it. Any further questions? Thanks, Sumi. I hope it was helpful. All right, in that case.
Yes, it was.
Thank you. Happy advising, everybody, and let me know if you need anything.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.